The fluorescent lights of Rosie's diner buzzed softly in the early morning air of Cedar Falls, Iowa. Sarah Mitchell wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that shift, her tired eyes glancing at the clock. 6:30 in the morning. Just another day of pouring coffee and serving pancakes to pay the rent. Her 7-year-old daughter Emma was probably just waking up now, getting ready for school with Mrs. Henderson, the elderly neighbor who watched her before the bus came. Sarah's heart ached thinking about it. She wanted to be there, making Emma breakfast, braiding her hair, walking her to the bus stop like other mothers did. But single motherhood didn't offer that luxury. The bell above the door chimed, and Sarah looked up with her practiced waitress smile. A group of businessmen in crisp suits walked in, settling into the corner booth. They were the usual morning crowd, executives from the insurance company downtown who always ordered the same thing and tipped exactly 15%. Behind them, the door opened again. This time, a man walked in wearing a worn leather jacket, jeans with oil stains, and heavy motorcycle boots. His beard was thick and unkempt, his hair pulled back in a ponytail. The rumble of his Harley-Davidson could still be heard outside. Sarah grabbed a menu and approached him with the same warm smile. "Sir, good morning. Sit anywhere you'd like." The biker nodded, his weathered face breaking into a gentle smile. "Thank you, ma'am." He chose a stool at the counter, setting his helmet down beside him. From the corner booth, Sarah heard one of the businessmen snicker. "Someone's lost Tom. This isn't a biker bar." His colleague laughed louder. "Probably can't even read the menu. Should we tell him McDonald's is down the street?" Sarah felt her jaw tighten, but she walked over to the biker, her notepad ready. "What can I get you this morning?" The man studied the menu carefully, his calloused fingers tracing the options. "I'll have the Denver omelet with whole wheat toast, please. And coffee, black." "Coming right up." Sarah turned to place the order, but the voice from the corner booth grew louder. "Hey buddy," the businessman named Tom called out. "You sure you're in the right place? We usually don't get your type here during business hours." The biker turned slowly, his expression calm. "I'm just here for breakfast, friend. Same as you." "Yeah, but some of us actually contribute to society." Tom stood up, emboldened by his colleagues' laughter. "We don't all ride around on noisy bikes pretending we're rebels. Some of us have real jobs." The diner had gone quiet. Even the cook, Miguel, had stopped flipping pancakes to watch. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. She'd seen men like Tom before, wealthy and entitled, who thought their corner office gave them permission to look down on everyone else. The biker simply nodded, turning back to the counter. "I understand. We all have our paths." But Tom wasn't finished. He walked closer, his voice dripping with condescension. "Let me guess. You're between jobs? Or maybe you just prefer living off the grid, avoiding responsibilities like taxes and child support?" Sarah's hands balled into fists. She thought of Emma, of every morning she woke up at 4:30 to make this work, of every night she fell asleep too exhausted to read her daughter a bedtime story. She thought of every person who'd ever looked at her with pity or judgment for being a single mother, for not having a college degree, for working in a diner instead of a boardroom. Before she could stop herself, Sarah stepped between them. "Excuse me, sir, but I'm going to have to ask you to return to your table. This gentleman is a paying customer, just like you." Tom's eyes widened with indignation. "Are you serious? We come here every morning. We bring business to this dump." Sarah's voice remained steady, though her heart hammered in her chest. "And he's brought his business here this morning. Everyone deserves respect, regardless of what they wear or what they ride. Now please, sit down or I'll have to ask you to leave." The other businessmen shifted uncomfortably. One of them tugged at Tom's sleeve. "Come on, man. Let it go. We're going to be late." Tom glared at Sarah, then at the biker. He threw a $20 bill on his table, though they hadn't even ordered yet. "This place has gone downhill. You just lost your best customers." The door slammed behind them as they left. The diner remained silent for a moment before the normal chatter gradually resumed. Sarah exhaled slowly, realizing her hands were shaking. She turned to the biker, her professional smile returning despite her nerves. "I'm sorry about that, Your omelet will be right up. The man looked at her with something she couldn't quite identify in his eyes. Gratitude, perhaps, or maybe recognition. No, ma'am. Thank you. That took courage. Not many people would do what you just did. Sarah shrugged, trying to downplay the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Everyone deserves dignity. That's all. The biker extended his weathered hand across the counter. My name is Marcus. Marcus Reed. Sarah shook his hand. Sarah Mitchell. Nice to meet you, Marcus. What Marcus didn't tell her was that the watch on his wrist cost more than her annual salary, or that the supposedly old motorcycle outside was a custom-built masterpiece worth $100,000. He didn't mention that he owned the largest motorcycle manufacturing company in the Midwest, or that he was in Cedar Falls scouting locations for his next factory. Some truths he'd learned were better revealed in time. 3 weeks passed, and Marcus became a regular at Rosie's Diner. He came every Tuesday and Thursday morning, always sitting at the same counter stool, always ordering simple meals, always leaving generous tips that Sarah initially tried to refuse. You work hard, he'd say simply. You deserve it. Sarah found herself looking forward to those mornings. Marcus was different from most customers. He listened when she talked, asked about Emma, and shared stories about his own daughter who was grown now, living in Seattle with her own family. He never mentioned what he did for work, and Sarah never asked. It didn't matter to her whether he fixed motorcycles or rode them for pleasure. He was kind, and kindness was a rare commodity. But the incident with Tom and his colleagues had consequences Sarah hadn't anticipated. On a Friday afternoon, Dale Morrison, the owner of Rosie's Diner, called Sarah into his cramped office at the back. His face was serious, the kind of expression that made her stomach drop. Sarah, sit down. We need to talk. She sat, her mind racing through possibilities. Had she made a mistake with an order? Offended another customer? Her hands gripped the edge of the chair. Dale sighed heavily, running his hand through his thinning gray hair. I got a call from Tom Bradford yesterday. He's a vice president at Heartland Insurance. They've been bringing their morning meetings here for 5 years. Sarah's throat went dry. Mr. Morrison, I can explain what happened. He held up his hand. He told me you embarrassed him in front of his colleagues. Made him feel unwelcome. He said you chose to defend some random biker over loyal customers who actually spend money here. That's not what happened. Sarah's voice cracked slightly. He was bullying that man, humiliating him for no reason. I just asked him to show basic respect. Dale's expression softened, but his words remained firm. Sarah, I understand. I do. But Tom Bradford and his group bring in almost $500 a week. They recommended this place to half the business district. Since that morning, we've lost 6 corporate breakfast accounts. 6. The weight of his words settled on her chest like concrete. I didn't know. I'm sorry. You're a good waitress. One of the best I've got. But I can't afford to lose business like this. Especially not with the new franchise opening up on Main Street. He paused, and Sarah knew what was coming before he said it. I'm gonna have to let you go. The world seemed to tilt. Please, Mr. Morrison. I need this job. Emma starts 2nd grade next month, and her school supplies alone cost almost $200. I have rent due in 2 weeks. I'll apologize to Tom Bradford. I'll do whatever it takes. Dale wouldn't meet her eyes. I already gave him your apology. He said it's too late. He's made it clear that as long as you work here, his people won't come back. I've got 3 other employees depending on this place staying open. I have to think of them too. Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. When do I need to leave? End of your shift today. I'll pay you through next week as severance. Dale finally looked at her, genuine regret in his weathered face. I'm sorry, Sarah. I really am. She stood on shaking legs, nodding numbly. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Morrison. The rest of her shift passed in a haze. She served coffee with mechanical precision, smiled at customers who didn't know her world was crumbling, and avoided Miguel's sympathetic glances from the kitchen. When Marcus came in for his usual Thursday breakfast, she couldn't bring herself to tell him. Everything all right, Sarah? He asked, concern evident in his voice. You seem distracted. Just tired. Long week. She poured his coffee, the pot trembling slightly in her hand. Marcus studied her face, clearly unconvinced, but he didn't push. If you ever need to talk, I'm a pretty good listener. I know. Thank you, Marcus. That evening, after her final shift, Sarah sat in her 11-year-old Honda Civic in the parking lot, finally allowing herself to cry. She thought about the bills stacked on her kitchen counter, about Emma's excitement over starting second grade, about the interview she'd missed last month because Emma had the flu and no one else could watch her. She thought about Mrs. Henderson next door, who watched Emma out of kindness but was too elderly to do it full-time. She thought about her mother in Florida, who'd told her that getting pregnant at 22 by a man who disappeared before Emma was born was her own mistake to live with. She thought about every choice that had led her here, sitting in a diner parking lot at 30 years old, unemployed and terrified. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. $347. That was it. That was all that stood between her daughter and homelessness. She wiped her tears, started the car, and drove home to Emma, wearing the same smile she always wore. Her daughter would never know how scared she was. That was a burden Sarah would carry alone, the way she carried everything else. Sarah spent the weekend sending out applications to every restaurant, cafe, and retail store in Cedar Falls. By Monday morning, she'd heard back from exactly 3 places. 2 said they weren't hiring. The third, a truck stop diner 40 miles away, offered her night shifts for minimum wage with no benefits. She sat at her small kitchen table, Emma coloring beside her, doing the math in her head. Gas money for an 80-mile round trip, plus paying Mrs. Henderson to stay overnight with Emma. The numbers didn't work. She'd barely break even, and she'd never see her daughter. "Mom, why do you look so sad?" Emma looked up from her drawing, her brown eyes wide with innocent concern. Sarah forced a smile, tucking a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just thinking about grown-up stuff." "What are you drawing?" "It's you and me at the park. See?" Emma held up the paper, showing 2 stick figures on swings, both with enormous smiles. "It's beautiful, baby." Sarah's heart ached. When was the last time they'd gone to the park? When was the last time she'd had an afternoon free to just be a mother? On Tuesday morning, Sarah found herself walking past Rosie's diner, unable to break the habit. Through the window, she saw Marcus at his usual spot, reading a newspaper. Without thinking, she pushed open the door. Marcus looked up, his face brightening before concern clouded his features. "Sarah, I thought you'd have been here hours ago. Is everything okay?" She slid onto the stool beside him, no longer his waitress, just another person seeking comfort in a familiar place. "I got fired, Marcus, because of what happened with those businessmen. Because I defended you." Marcus set down his newspaper, his expression darkening. "What do you mean?" "The owner said Tom Bradford called. Said he and his colleagues wouldn't come back as long as I worked here. They were big customers, brought in a lot of business. So Dale had no choice." Sarah laughed bitterly. "Funny thing is, I'd do it again. What Tom did was wrong." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Then he asked, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I've been applying everywhere, but Cedar Falls isn't exactly booming with opportunities. There's a place 40 miles away, but the logistics don't work with Emma." Sarah rubbed her temples, exhaustion seeping through every word. "I have 2 weeks before rent is due. After that, I honestly don't know. Do you have family who can help?" "My mom's in Florida. We don't really talk. Emma's father hasn't been in the picture since before she was born. It's just us." Sarah looked at him, vulnerability written across her face. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear all this. You came here for breakfast, not for someone's life problems." Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. "Sarah, I need to tell you something. I should have told you weeks ago." Sarah took the card, reading the elegant script. "Marcus Reed, founder and CEO, Reed Motorcycle Corporation." Her eyes widened. "I'm not just some biker, Sarah. I own one of the largest motorcycle manufacturing companies in the country. That morning you defended me, I was in town scouting locations for a new factory. Tom Bradford and his friends assumed I was nobody because of how I looked. You saw past that. You stood up for what was right when it would have been easier to stay silent. I don't understand. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to know who you really were. Marcus leaned forward, his voice earnest. In my position, everyone wants something. But you never asked for anything. You worked hard, you talked about your daughter with such love, and you defended a stranger because it was the right thing to do. That's rare, Sarah. That's valuable. Sarah stared at the card, her mind struggling to process. What does this mean? It means I want to help. More than that, I want to offer you a job. Marcus, I appreciate it, but I don't know anything about motorcycles. He smiled. I'm not offering you a job at the factory. I'm opening a new office here in Cedar Falls, and I need someone to manage community relations. Someone who knows this town, who understands regular people, who has integrity. The salary is $75,000 a year, with full benefits and flexible hours so you can be there for Emma. Sarah felt dizzy. That's more than double what I was making. Marcus, I can't accept charity. It's not charity. It's an investment in the right person. Marcus held her gaze. You risked your livelihood to defend a stranger's dignity. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. So what do you say? If you're still watching and rooting for Sarah, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Because what happens next is going to change everything, and you won't want to miss it. Sarah accepted the position, though part of her still couldn't believe it was real. The first month felt like living someone else's life. She had an office with her name on the door, health insurance that actually covered Emma's dental work, and for the first time since her daughter was born, she could breathe without the constant weight of financial panic crushing her chest. Marcus was true to his word about flexible hours. When Emma had a school play, Sarah was there in the front row. When parent-teacher conferences came around, she didn't have to beg for time off. She worked hard, building relationships with local businesses, coordinating charity events, and helping Reed Motorcycle Corporation become a genuine part of the Cedar Falls community. But the real transformation happened inside her. Sarah realized she'd spent 8 years of motherhood running on empty, convincing herself that exhaustion was just part of being a single parent. Now she had energy to cook real dinners, to help with homework without fighting sleep, to laugh with her daughter instead of just surviving each day. 3 months into her new job, Sarah was working late in the office when Marcus knocked on her door frame. Got a minute? Of course. Come in. He sat across from her desk, holding a folder. Remember Tom Bradford? Sarah tensed. How could I forget? His insurance company was one of the contractors bidding to provide coverage for our new factory. 1,500 employees. Significant policy. Marcus slid the folder across the desk. I wanted you to see this before I made my decision. Sarah opened it, seeing Tom's company listed among 3 other bidders. His offer was the lowest, the most comprehensive. Why are you showing me this? Because you're my community relations manager. How we treat people matters. Tom's company would save us almost $200,000 a year. But he's also the man who cost you your job, who humiliated someone for his own entertainment. Marcus leaned back in his chair. I want your honest opinion. Should business be separate from character? Sarah thought about the old her, the waitress who would have said yes, who would have swallowed her pride because money was money. But she wasn't that person anymore. Not entirely. Tom Bradford is good at his job, she said slowly. But he's also someone who uses his position to diminish others. If we hire him, we're saying that behavior doesn't matter as long as the numbers work. She met Marcus's eyes. I think it matters. I think it should matter. Marcus smiled, taking back the folder. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. He stood, heading for the door, then paused. By the way, I'm having dinner with the mayor tomorrow night. He wants to discuss the factory's impact on local employment. I'd like you there. Your voice matters in this community now, Sarah. Don't forget that. After he left, Sarah sat in her office, looking at Emma's crayon drawing taped to her wall. The same one with 2 stick figures on swings. Except now, both figures were really smiling. 6 months after Sarah started her new position, Reed Motorcycle Corporation held its grand opening celebration for the Cedar Falls factory. The event drew over 2,000 people, local families mingling with business leaders and state officials. Sarah had coordinated every detail, from the food trucks serving local cuisine to the scholarship program Marcus announced for children of factory workers. Emma stood beside her mother, wearing a new dress Sarah had bought without checking the price tag first. "Look, Mom, there's a bounce house. Go ahead, sweetheart. I'll be right here." Sarah watched her daughter run off, her heart full in a way she'd forgotten was possible. "Impressive event," a voice said behind her. Sarah turned to find Tom Bradford standing there, his expression uncomfortable. She hadn't seen him since that morning at the diner, though she'd heard through the Cedar Falls rumor mill that his company had lost the Reed Corporation contract. "Tom." She kept her voice neutral, professional. He shifted his weight, clearly struggling. "I owe you an apology. What I did that morning at Rosie's was inexcusable. I was arrogant and cruel, and you lost your job because you did the right thing." He paused, seeming to force the next words out. "I'm sorry, Sarah. Truly." Sarah studied him, seeing something she hadn't noticed before. Without his colleagues around, without the armor of his expensive suit and corporate confidence, Tom Bradford looked ordinary. Human. Flawed. "Thank you for saying that. Takes courage to apologize. I heard you're doing well here. Community Relations Manager." Tom managed a small smile. "Turns out defending the right person can change your life." Before Sarah could respond, Marcus appeared beside her, Emma's hand in his. "This young lady says you promised her cotton candy." Sarah laughed, the sound genuine and free. "I did. Come on, Em." As they walked toward the food vendors, Marcus fell into step beside her. "You handled that well. Tom's been trying to get a meeting with me for weeks. I told him he needed to make things right with you first." Sarah glanced at him. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Marcus looked out at the celebration, at the families enjoying the evening, at the factory that would employ hundreds of local people. "None of this happens if you hadn't stood up that morning. You reminded me why I started this company. Not just to build motorcycles, but to build communities. To treat people with dignity regardless of who they are or what they look like." Emma tugged on Sarah's hand. "Mom, Mr. Marcus says he's teaching motorcycle safety classes and kids can come watch. Can I go next week?" Sarah looked at Marcus, who shrugged with a grin. "Educational purposes. Very responsible. We'll see, baby." Sarah pulled her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the solid weight of her happiness. For the first time in 8 years, the future didn't terrify her. It felt like possibility. Felt like hope. Felt like finally coming home. 2 years later, Sarah stood in the conference room of Reed Motorcycle Corporation's Cedar Falls headquarters, leading a presentation to the board of directors. Her confidence had grown alongside her role. She was now Director of Community and Corporate Relations, overseeing charity initiatives across 3 states. Emma, now 9 years old, sat in the back of the room doing homework, comfortable in this space that had become a second home. Marcus had insisted she could come to the office anytime, and Sarah no longer felt guilty about it. Balance, she'd learned, wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. After the meeting, Marcus pulled her aside. "Walk with me." They stepped outside into the crisp autumn air, walking toward the factory floor where the sound of machinery hummed with productive energy. Over 800 people now worked here, many of them single parents like Sarah had been, given a second chance at stability. "I have something for you." Marcus handed her an envelope. Sarah opened it, her eyes widening. It was a check for $1 million. "Marcus, I can't accept this." Her hands trembled. "It's not a gift. It's a commission." Marcus smiled at her confusion. 2 years ago, I came to this town looking for a factory location. What I found was something more valuable. A partner who helped me build not just a business, but a community. Your work brought in 12 major corporate partnerships, created scholarship programs that have helped 43 kids go to college, and established this company as a model for ethical business practices. This is your percentage of the success you helped create. Sarah stared at the check, tears streaming down her face. "I defended you because it was right, not for this." "I know. That's exactly why you deserve it." Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. "You taught me that dignity isn't negotiable, That character matters more than convenience. You changed my life that morning, Sarah. This is me saying thank you. Sarah thought back to that terrified woman in the diner parking lot, counting her last $300, wondering how she'd survive. She thought about every morning she'd woken up exhausted, every night she'd cried in silence, every moment she'd felt invisible and insignificant. She wasn't that woman anymore. Mom! Emma ran out, backpack bouncing. Are we still getting ice cream? Sarah wiped her tears, laughing. Yeah, baby. We're getting ice cream. The expensive kind. As they walked to the car, Emma chattering about her school day, Sarah looked back at the factory, at the building that represented so much more than steel and machinery. It represented second chances. It represented the truth that one moment of courage could change everything.